Okay, if you own a RZR XP 1000, you may or may not have a lot of noise coming from the rear end that can be associated with the stabilizer bar. There's been some write-ups on it before. There's a lot of different reasons you can get noise back here, but I think mine really is the stabilizer bar. I'm going to point my finger, my index finger, to a space between the collar on the stabilizer bar shaft and the bushing. And I'm going to yank it back and forth and you can hear it rock. I even have some shims that I put in here before, but still they're not enough. The bushings are probably worn, but there's maybe more to it. But listen to this. So you can imagine when the thing's moving back and forth, I'm getting a lot of that noise when I'm riding. So today I'm going to tear into this, replace the bushings. I've got some RZR braces on here because I did rip my my mount before. I found it busted off once. That's this mount right here. I had that welded back on because it came completely off. But backing up a little bit, you can see the RZR brace. That's this big thing right in here, right? So, sorry about the jumbly stuff, but that makes a heck of a lot of noise. It drives me nuts. A lot of people think you can solve it by tightening all this stuff up here. I've done that before. I will, of course, make sure that everything's good and tight there, torqued, etc. But today, I'm gonna get into this thing and I'll show you some of the things that I plan to do. All right, I've got new bushings. There's 4 pieces to it. So there's one out of the package, and it's this Polaris part number. I think you can see it right there. Easy enough to find. But those are the bushings that go in. That little hole right there is for the grease fitting. You can see. I told you I'd put some shims in before. I made them out of 1.1 inside diameter, basically fender washers or big washers like this. And you have to cut this notch out here because the end of the stabilizer bar is tabbed. So you slide that over the tab and then you can get this on the tube. But that's the way I got those to fit before. And like I said, they haven't worked. Now I bought some shaft collars. These are 2-piece shaft collars. They're 1.1 inside diameter. They're from a company called McMaster Carr. There's the part number on it. 2 Charlie 112 Zebra. 1.1 inside diameter. Now these are a 1/2 inch wide though. So my big question is going to be, will these fit between the, because what I want to do is snug the bushings up to the collars that are welded onto the stabilizer bar and then push this on the other side to keep it taut. But it's at 1/2 inch wide, and I don't know if I'll still have room to get my RZR braces on there. So that's something I'm anxious to find out. And I don't know if you noticed it, but when I was looking at this, I happen to have a busted spring. I hope I'm capturing that on there, but I got some new springs to put on today too, so I'll be taking the shocks off and doing all kinds of stuff, but I'm going to get into this rear end and see if I can't make any improvement on that noisy stabilizer bar. So I'll be back in a while. I got some disassembly to do. Slightly better view with the shock out of place. We can we could see that motion. You can see the ring that I had in there, the shim. So I got it jacked up now. I'm getting ready to take these stabilizer bar mounts off, and then we'll get in here. I got to get these things out though. They were really hard to do, but I think with the shocks off, they might not be as troubling as they were when I put them in. Side view there. I think that's what I got. Yep. Okay, I took the old bushings out off one of the sides of the stabilizer, and here I have the old half and then one of the new halves just to mate it up to see if I think that they were, I could tell if this old one was worn out. But guess what? These little detentes fit together snug, and looking at these shoulders right here, there's not a whole lot of wear on the bushing that makes me think just putting in new bushing is going to, eliminate that lateral movement. You can see that they're pretty well suited to be together. That's an old one with 2,800 miles on it actually, and a new one, and they just look almost perfectly fitted together. I can't tell really. There's not a lot of difference in it. Anyway, we'll see in a second. Now, with this thing out of the way, let's take a look at the stabilizer bar itself. You can see it there. And sorry about the jerky camera stuff, but there's one of those shims that I said I made, that I had in there. Wasn't enough to stop all that lateral movement, but then the shim comes off, and this is the tricky part, getting it over this dimpled end. That's why this notch that I cut out works so well, because it goes right over that thing. See, one go like that, notched it, and then boom, goes over it. So you can try that too. I think I made them out of ABS, and I also made them out of metal, and I've tried them on here, but again, it's not seemed to take care of the lateral movement. So I'll be tearing into the other side, get it off of there, then it's time for new bushings, and we'll see if those collars fit. I don't think they're going to fit. Okay, extreme close-up where you can see the slack in the stabilizer bar. This is with brand new bushings. I put it on without the RZR braces that go from here on down to the engine mount. But just moving this thing, you can see the gap right here. That is going to be the source of a lot of noise even after I put everything together. So I need to fill that gap, and I don't think my little collars are going to fit, but just for the heck of it, I'm going to put them on right now and see what it does. Well, problem with the collar is to fit on there, it's biting right at where the thing bends, and so I can't get a good square shot against it. So you can see it's on there. It's just, I haven't figured out yet how to get it on there without having it be cockeyed like that, I think, because the bar is bending right there. But that shoulder's nice and tight now. So, you know, this is kind of the position it would be in. And that would, I'm yanking on it, that would do it, but I'll never get that RZR support on there anyway, so I'm gonna have to think of something else. All right, just for grins, I took the old bushings that I had before so I took the new ones out, and I took the old one and I basically sanded down the shoulder on the bushing, or I cut it off on my bandsaw so that there's no shoulder on this side, so I could snug this collar right up to the that thing that holds the bushings on there. And then I didn't get as much of that cockeyed motion from the when you tighten it, because we're on that curve there. See what I mean? It's much more snug now. And as a matter of fact, if I wasn't putting those braces on, I'd go with this, because this side's tight as all get out. I'm going to even see if the other side will, see how much play it has in it on the other side. That is, even though it doesn't move, whether or not it has anything to clear now, because I may have soaked it all up by pulling this flush over here. Well, no, theoretically I'll have a gap over there. We'll go see. Yep, and as you can see here, now there's the whole gap. That's what I'm dealing with. So when I'm snug in the shoulder on the other side, that's how much space I've got to fill. It won't move right now because that collar's got it tight on there, but that's how much space I got to fill. So if I was going to use shims, I'd have to divide that space by 2 and put that many shims on either side between the bushing and that raised shoulder on the bar. I don't know what else to do. That's about all I can think of. I don't think I'd ever get a collar on this side now because it'd be way out on the curve or the bend, so it won't work. And there you can see the shoulder of the bushing there, that black plastic right here. This is what I'm talking about. I cut that off with my bandsaw on the other side so it's flush, and that way I got the collar right up next to the mount. Okay, well, I was unable to use the shaft collars that I bought, so I ended up putting some new shims in on both sides. The shims start out as these sort of spacers. They're not really fender washers. They're in a different section of the hardware store, but they're 1 1/8 inside diameter. So I have 2 different thicknesses, and I could just kind of mess around with different combinations of them. But after I get them, I take them down and grind them to this shape, and then that helps it get over this tabbed end of the stabilizer bar by cutting that shape on it. So then you slide them up and into place and then lock it in. So that bit's done, and I've got everything tightened up now, and I mean there's nothing, it's not moving at all. So we'll see how long that lasts. Off to work on the shocks.